Right, people, good morning, good day, good afternoon, depending on whenever you're going to watch, you are watching this video. So this is Professor Manganga once again, people. So this is our second video, which is our continuation for the previous video that we did on the introduction of functions. So today I'll just go through just 4 examples, just trying to make sense of the theory part. So this one is a practical aspect. So I've chosen questions from the previous assessments, so they will help you and give you an idea of what to expect on your test, people, and on your exam. So I believe, people, things will make sense, people, as we do more example together. So another thing that you must also check is that, people, if you can see that you have different ways of representing what a function, people. We have different ways of representing what a function. The first one, people, is in weights, people, just like we can see on example number 1. It's weight, people. So in this case, our function is given us in a form of weights, people, in a form of weights. Not really our function, our relation, people. Remember, our relation is given in terms of what? In terms of weights in this case. And then our second example, people, we are given also relation or graphs, people, in a form of what? Algebraic expression, people, in a form of equations. And then number 4, people, we are given it in a graphical form, in a pictorial form. So this means now it's drawn for us. So you must also understand and try and be able also. So you need to give yourself more time to be able, people, or of you making sense of whatever information you are given, and that information will be given in different forms. So make sure, people, you understand it. So let's go through, people, this example without the waste of time. So we will look at number 1 in this case. So number 1 is a question that was taken from our Blackboard test number 1, people. So in this case, we are given what? A 3 relation. The question says which relation, people. That's a question. Which relation and what? A function. And before you can even attempt to answer this question, people, you have to understand now, okay, what is a function and what is not a function, people. So please, I'll just go back to our definition, people. Remember, what is a function, people? A function is a mathematical what? Relationship, or it's a rule, mathematical rule, or it's a mathematical expression that defines what, people? That defines a relationship between 2 variables. So it can be more than 2 variables, but in this case we'll be focusing on 2 variables. In this case, people, only 2 variables. Your input, which in this case, people, will represent your what, people? Will represent your x, and we also will end your output also, which will represent your y. So we'll be studying what, people? In function, meaning a function tries to find a relationship between your what? Your outputs and your inputs, your x and y's. Are you with me? But now, people, this definition is very generic, people. This is very generic, so we must be able to note that this is what makes that particular information that you are given, or a graph, maybe a function, or a relation, a function. It will be these points. It's where each input is related to exactly one output. Are you with me? So we don't have a situation whereby you have an input and then you have many output, one output and then you have many output. No, we want where it's a case whereby each input will only be related to one output. Once you have a situation whereby one input gives out many output, and then you must know that we are not speaking of a function. That is not a function. I hope, people, this information just remind you of our information from a previous video, and then this is the information that we are going to use to answer this question, people. I hope this makes sense, people. So let us see the practical aspect of this theory, people. We'll look at number one. So we defined what is a function. So we know that we now know, okay, what makes a function, what does not make something not to be a function. Okay, so we look at relation number one. Okay, all right. So relation number one. So in this case, people, your x is a lecturing, and then your y is your module in UFS during semester 1 of 2022. So now, people, it's very important because sometimes English can be somehow difficult, especially when it comes to technical subject. So you must be able to dissect it and make sense of the information mathematically. So can you see that? So in this case, people, x is a lecturing. So remember, x is a lecturing, and the lecturing is provided by what, people? By a lecturer. So x is your lecturer. Can you see that, people? And then your y, people, module y. So your y, people, which is your output, now will represent your what, people? Your module. In UFS during what? Semester 1 of 2022. So check out, people. So based on the information that you know about function, is this a mathematical statement qualifies, which is in this case a relation, people? Is this relation qualifies to be a function, or it does not? So let us try and make sense of this, people. Remember, a lecture, people, one lecture, which is one input, that lecture, people, can lecture how many modules? It can lecture one module, or it can lecture two modules, or it can lecture three modules. Can you see that now? With a lecturer can lecture as many modules as they can, depending whether they qualify to do so. So do you see now, for each output, for each input, we have different output. So based on the information that you know, is this a function? Definitely not. This is not a function. This relation is not a function. The relation between the lecturer and the module is not a function, because a lecturer can one lecture, which is one input, can lecture multiple modules. And remember the definition of function. A definition of a function says that each input can only be related to exactly one output. So in this case, it's not. One output, which is our lecturer, can lecture many modules, which is our output. So can you see that it does not qualify this relationship as a function? So it makes it not to be what? Not to be function. So I hope people things are starting to unwind and make sense. So let's check relation number two. Relation number two, now we are given a situation whereby x is a country, which is our input, and our output is y is the president in 2002. So x is the country and y is the what, people? Y is the president in 2022. So the question is, people, based on the information that you know about a function, is this relation a function or not? Definitely, people, it is a function. Why am I saying so? Because one country can only have one president in that particular year. But also, it's not only about the year, people. We are specifically talking about that one country at point in time, one country can only have one president. You don't have a situation whereby a country can have multiple presidents. You don't have that situation. It won't happen. It's impossible. So this qualifies it as a what? As a function, because one input, which is a country, can only have one input, which is X as a country, can only have Y, which is president, one output. So you don't have a situation whereby we have different president, or we have two presidents for one country. No, meaning one country, one president, and which is what the function says. So this qualifies as what people, as our what people qualifies as our what function, because one country, one president. Remember, the definition of the function is that one input is only related to exactly one output. So this qualifies it as a what? As a function. So relation number two says X is a student in UFS and Y is a corresponding height on that particular day. Can you see that? So X is a student and Y is the corresponding height at that particular day, people. Corresponding height on that particular day. So this means now, people, based on the information that you know, is this relation, because we are trying to relate what a student and their corresponding height in this particular day, people, is this information, this relation now qualifies as a what, people, as a function? Definitely yes, people, because at a particular day, people, a student can only have one corresponding height. You can't measure me now, people, and you find that my height maybe it's 1.5, and then after 3 hours I come and you measure me and then you find a different height, which is my output now. No, you can't. You will find the same height. So meaning each input is related to one output. So each student can only have one height on that particular day. So this qualifies it what? As a function. That's why our correct answer is C in this case. I hope things make sense. Make sure you can always pause, you can always slow it down and try to make sense of this information, people. So let's go to number 2 now. So we are given what, people? This function. Pardon, you are given this relation, this graph, people. So now you ask whether this is a function or not a function, people. So it's wise for you to draw or maybe list terms for X. You can list terms for X and list terms for Y, and then write the values and write their corresponding output, and then try to make sense of the information based on the definition that you know. But to make things easier, people, I'll just draw it because it is easier to answer this type of question when you've drawn the graph. So based on this this function, we can see that it moved. It's this function. It is moved to units here. So this is our function, people. So this is our X, this is our Y. So this, pardon me, this is our what? This is our graph. So is this graph representing what, people? Is this graph represent a function? Okay, so in this case, people, I want to introduce something. You can use something that is called vertical line test to test if you are given the actual graph. The graph is drawn for you. You can use a vertical line test, people. Once you draw a graph, a line here, and you see that vertical line, people, you can draw what, people? A vertical line. You can draw a vertical line, and once you see that, people, that line, a vertical line, people, cuts your graph in 2 points, and then you must know this is not what? Is not a what? is not a function. So this way is called what? A vertical line test. It's something that I wanted to introduce today. So it's also helping us. You can answer this question by analyzing, checking whether the inputs and outputs, try and see how do they relate, and then make a conclusion. But if you're given, or you've managed maybe to draw a graph in a pictorial form, you can literally draw what, people? A vertical line test, and test whether the vertical line cuts the graph in 1 point or in 2 points or more. So if it cuts the graph in 2 points or more, you can conclude that this is not a function. But if it cuts it once, and then you must know that it is what? It is a function if it cuts it once. But if it cuts it two or more times, it is not a function. I hope things make sense, people. So we know that this is not what, people? This is not a function. This is not a function. And then you're given also this a graph again, people, which is a circle. And then you are asked now the question whether this function is what, people? Whether this graph is a function. And then you must be able, people. If you're able to draw it, you can draw it. Or if you're not able, try to relate the inputs and outputs and check how do they relate to one another based on the definition that you know of a function. So in this case, people, remember, it's easier to draw it, so I'll just go about that and just straight to the point. So this will be our graph. Pardon my drawing, people. This is 3, -3, and then this is going to be -3 and 3. And then, people, if you have managed to draw it, just draw what, people? A vertical line test. Draw a vertical line test, people. Draw a vertical line test. And then, can you see that, people? The vertical line test touches the graph 2 times. So this makes this function not to be what, people? Not to be a function. I hope now this thing makes sense, people. So make sure you can always watch and try to make sense of this information, people. So this is not what, people? Is not a function based on the vertical line test. So now the graph has been drawn for us now. And then you ask whether this graph is a function or it is not. Do the same thing, people, because it's already been drawn. Oh, sorry. Do the same thing. Draw a vertical line test. It touches once. Touches once. Touches once. Touches once. Touches once. It touches 2 times. Touches 2 times. Can you see that? So remember, people, even if there's some point, there is a place in a graph where the graph, when you draw the vertical line test, is touched only in 1 point, people. If there is a point in a function, in a graph, where that particular graph, when you draw a vertical line test and then it is touched twice by that vertical line test, and then you must know that that is not what, people? Not a function. As long as there is a point in a graph where when you draw your vertical line test, people, that particular line, people, intersect the graph, the graph at 2 points, and then that is not a function. That is not a function. So please, people, take note of that information, that even though you can draw it here and then it touches one, and then you just don't conclude, people. Check it in that particular domain, in the domain that you are given. So in this case, when I draw it here and then it touches what? Touches this graph at 2 points. So this does not qualify as what? As a function now. This is not a function based on the vertical line test. So you draw the vertical line test on the domain that you are given, and then to test. Once there's a point in a graph where the vertical line test intersect the graph in 2 points, and then you can conclude. I don't want to make this video long, people. Make sure you go and watch the previous video and try to link with this video that tries to practicalize the theory behind the functions and relation. I hope people things will make sense. And then remember, people, take this information and practice. Take this information and practice so that it can be engraved in your heart and in your mind, people. So I don't want to make this video too long, people. Thank you very much, people. Make sure you like and share, and make sure to subscribe to our YouTube channel. So this is Professor Manqanqa signing out. Makokanye.